Welcome to the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. Whether you are a seasoned professional or a first-time fundraiser, we have the advice you need to take your next step toward major gift mastery. I'm your host, Tom Dauber, President of Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Well, good morning. This is Tom Dauber with the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast. I am pleased to have Courtney Markley on my show today. Now, Courtney, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tom, for having me on. So I have been working as a financial counselor the past several years. Similar to yourself, I'm a podcaster. I host the Hard Money podcast. And just most recently launched the Center for Financial Discipleship, where we are on a mission to really change the way that people talk about money. So I'm so excited for what we're going to get up to today. It's going to be great.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I'm eager to learn more about what you do. It's very unique. Now, before we dive into all that professional stuff, though, tell us a little bit about what you do when you're not focused on finances.
Oh, if my husband was sitting here, he would laugh because he would say, she doesn't do anything else other than this thing. It's what she loves. It's my hobby and it's my profession. It's my craft. It's everything that I love to do. But I'm married to my husband, Adam, for 13 years, I want to say. I hope I'm not misquoting that. We have two kids who are 5 and 3. So when I'm not working or talking to someone about money conversations, I'm probably taking care of my 2 kids or very hyper dog. So that's more than likely what I'm getting up to if I'm not in the middle of having a conversation with someone.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, I love dogs. I've got about 220 pounds of dog in my kitchen right now.
Wow.
What type of dog do you have?
We have a mini Bernedoodle.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, a lot of people had COVID babies. We had a COVID puppy. That was definitely something that was not planned that came out of COVID. And at the time we had 2 toddlers and we thought, why not get a puppy and just throw that into the mix? That makes sense. So yeah, we love him. He's very hyper, very goofy. He fits in very well with the family. I'll say that.
That's fantastic. Well, we both have doodles and we
Oh,
also have a Bernese. And
really?
love the personality of that Bernese.
Uh-huh.
Love the personality of our golden doodle. Yeah, golden doodle. And of course, we've got a purebred golden as well. But
Oh, wow.
yeah,
That's
great breeds.
amazing. I love it. Yeah, they're so fun and they just keep you on your toes. Absolutely. If the kids aren't acting up, it's the dog. So, you just never know what to expect every day. It's great.
Oh, you're not kidding. So tell our audience a little bit about your professional journey. What you do is unique, and I'm very excited to expose folks to it and learn more about it myself. What do you do, and how did you come to do it?
Yeah, so financial counseling, it looks very different than financial advising, which is normally what someone might compare us to if they're not quite sure of exactly what financial counselors do. So, for the record, we don't manage wealth, we don't sell any financial products. So,
Mm,
you wouldn't come to me to invest anything. I'm not going to sell you insurance or anything like that. But what we do is we talk to people about their behaviors with money. We get to
oh,
go, I say we get to do the fun stuff. Where we're helping people so that when they sit down to their advisor, whoever they might be working with, they have a course of action. They know what they want to do. So we talk to people maybe about what do you actually want to do in retirement and what does that look like? And do you want to pass on your wealth to your kids? And let's go really deep dive into potentially the positive
mm.
negatives of what could happen in those circumstances. We talk a lot about people's fears and their insecurities around money. Just their past history with money and all these things that may keep them up at night. And so that's what we get to do as financial counselors. So it's all about the conversation. It's all about developing deep relationships with people. And I will say that when I started in finance, I didn't quite know what I was getting myself into. I'll be perfectly honest. I started out as a financial coach, and long story short, I don't know how much of the background you want. So stop me if you want me to go deeper. But I did not set out to be in finance. I initially went to school for fashion design, and
Oh,
that was the career. I was working as a fashion designer for many, many years. Uh, During that time, got myself into quite the financial mess. I went to college in Chicago, and
hmm.
I worked in a very prestigious bridal salon, and we served celebrity clients and all these fabulous people. And I was essentially just a broke college kid spending money trying to look like I fit into this world that I very much did not fit into. And so when I graduated school and began working as a fashion designer, even in our young 20s, and I say we, my husband and I were already married at this point, we had accumulated a ton of debt.
Hmm.
And even though we made a really good income, it was my behavior with money that was causing all of these issues. And then we started to see how that also formed some marriage tensions and some mental health issues. And it just started to spiral from there. So, long story short, while I was still working as a fashion designer, I started meeting with the stewardship pastor at our church to get help. And basically said, I think a lot of these issues that I'm facing in my relationships and in my mental health and otherwise might have something to do with my relationship with money. And so I didn't realize it at the time, but I was starting to get kind of a crash course in financial counseling, but I was the participant. And so that's how it all started. And then it started to snowball from there, where I loved the work that we were doing together. I was seeing the benefits from it in my own life. So I started teaching some of the classes at our church, and then I got trained to be a coach. And then I started my own financial coaching business. And again, when I started, I hadn't quite connected all of these dots. But I thought, well, people struggle with money simply because they just don't understand how the math works. So I'm going to teach them how to budget, and I'm going to teach them financial literacy. I'm going to show them exactly how the math works, and I'm going to deliver this to them on a silver platter, and then all of their money problems will go away. And I'm sure many of your audience are laughing because they know, like, it's not that simple, right? It's really not that simple. And so after quite a few years of doing this, what I was recognizing was that many of the folks who are coming to me actually had a lot of, and they were really, really intelligent people. And so it wasn't a problem of they don't understand how math works. No, they were running, some of them were running billion-dollar budgets for their companies, and yet their home life, the finances were just a wreck. And so then that was when I started to step back and realize, okay, there's something much deeper going on here. This really has very little to do with math, and it has a whole lot to do with our heart. So, how do we start to shift the conversation around money so that it's not just about math and science with rules and regulations, but it's really more about psychology with emotions, and there's a ton of nuance to it. And so, how do we start to help people by leaning into that side of things? And so that's now what I do with people. That's why we have the Heart of Money podcast. And it's to help people kind of get underneath whatever financial pain point that they might be experiencing.
Wow, that's really interesting. I think one of the things that I find, having been a major gift fundraiser for a long time, is that donors oftentimes have no one to talk to really about their finances and their financial struggles. And they might have a wealth advisor, someone investing
Mhm.
their money, but the question of who do I leave my money to? What's a good investment? What's my legacy? What do I want? There's no one. And oftentimes, as the development officer, sometimes you become their confidant on those issues. And on the one hand, it's a wonderful blessing to be trusted to that degree. But at the same time, you kind of feel bad for the person who's like, wow, it seems like other than this stranger that doesn't really know you that well, that you only, it seems like there ought to be more people in your life thinking through those things. Because, of course, as a major gift officer, you would never really advise a person, at least you shouldn't, well, you should definitely leave. Tom Dauber here for Abundant Vision Philanthropic Consulting. Fundraising can be hard work, and it can be hard to mentally get into the place you need to be in order to see new opportunities. Everyone struggles with it. We are like the fish in the fishbowl who just can't see the water they're swimming in. That's when having outside expertise comes in handy. For 25 years, I've been helping nonprofits analyze their challenges, discover new ways forward, and develop clear plans that lead to greater fundraising revenues. Now I am available to help your organization develop the abundant vision it needs to inspire new levels of philanthropy at your nonprofit as well. Check out abundantvision.net to start your journey toward greater fundraising success today. Now, back to the show. Leave that kid out of,
Right.
your estate, and why'd you put that
Right.
money over? You just wouldn't do that if you were ethical, right? So it's good that there's someone like you who's really trying to have those conversations, because we don't necessarily think that person managing that $1 billion budget, you just assume they have it all together. But what I'm hearing from you is that's really not the case all the time.
Yeah, it's really not. It's interesting. There seems to be a flip of a switch when we're running a budget for someone else, like our employer, for our business. We can look at it without all of the emotions involved.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have quite the same skin in the game as when we come home, especially if they're married. They say, okay, now I have to figure out how to make these decisions with this other person. And we may want very different things, and we're struggling to communicate. And now there's all this tension that's starting to build. And also, how in the world do we start talking to our adult children about these things when I don't even feel like I have it together and I'm not sure how to proceed? And so it can get really sticky. And so I always like to encourage people, like, don't assume that people have it all together just because they're incredibly smart or they're really good at business. It doesn't always translate to home life the same way.
Wow. So Courtney, I have spent a little time looking at your LinkedIn profile. And as I hear you describe your work, I immediately see some things that are very interesting to me. I'd love to hear more about. Talk to me about ways that wealth can be dangerous. You talk about, helping people avoid pitfalls that folks fall into. What are common problems that wealthy people run into?
Absolutely. And so I think initially when people hear that question, what are some of the pitfalls of wealth? Sometimes you have to sit back for a minute and say, what do you even mean? Because I think the cultural narrative that we have is, well, life is going to be so much better. Life's going to be easier. You're going to have less problems the more money you have. But one of the things that I highlight for folks when they ask what I do is I help people kind of navigate those spiritual and mental pitfalls that revolve around wealth and success, because there are quite a few of them. They're just not really talked about that much. But what we see if we start to zoom out, the average American household, and this is just the average household. I imagine that a lot of the people that your audience is engaging with is probably well above average in terms of wealth, I'm assuming. But even just the average American household ranks within the top 4% wealthiest people in the world. 4% wealthiest people in the world. And yet, 3 out of 4 Americans say that they struggle with significant anxiety around money. And that is regardless of income. Okay, that's regardless of income. We see that money fights and money problems is a leading cause for divorce. Again, that is not just for those with less, but that is very much true with those who have much as well. So we see that we have a lot of money as a whole, as a society, but we still have a lot of anxiety around money. And what we are noticing is as people's income continues to grow well above that national average, what we're seeing is that they potentially have higher risks for getting into addictions. They have poor mental health. They have higher risk of suicide. They're lonely. They don't have people in their corners that they can trust to talk to. And so we can see that there's a direct correlation between how much money you have, a poor relational health, for my Christian clients for spiritual health if they don't know how to manage it properly.
That's very helpful. And I think these questions apply to everyone, whether they're coming from a faith based background or
Mm-hmm.
not. When you think about our country being, I mean, arguably the wealthiest country in the history of the world. But it seems to me, as a non expert, that we also probably have the highest levels of mental illness in the world,
Mm-hmm.
including our wealthy people, I'm sure, making up a part of that number. So I think what you're trying to address is really, really critical. Um, so, how does having a safe space to talk about life and money, how does that help with these types of issues, Courtney?
Mm-hmm. It's really, it helps tremendously. I don't know if we can understate it. Most people don't have a safe place to talk to someone about their life and their money.
Mhm.
And that is true, again, regardless of how much money you have. We see both ends of the spectrum, where if I'm talking to someone who doesn't have a lot of money, maybe they feel a lot of guilt and shame just because maybe they're not as successful as they want to be. But then on the opposite end of the spectrum, where you have someone who's highly, highly successful, they have a ton of money, there are still a lot of negative emotions that they wrestle with. I've talked to some clients who say, I have so much guilt and shame around having so much money. And so my friends don't even know how much money we actually have because I'm worried that they would judge us.
Mm.
And there are some folks you talk to who say, I feel so lonely because everyone just looks at me and sees dollar signs, and I can't have an authentic relationship with someone because I'm just worried that they want something from me. And so
Mm.
you can see there's not just one reason why it might be difficult for someone to engage in money conversations, but it could be a whole lot of different things coming together that make it difficult. So I encourage people, if you are someone who is actively engaging others in money conversations, to hold a safe space as much as you can, to be one of the only people that they may engage with who doesn't want something from them, but truly wants something for them, which I
Yeah.
know is probably a common phrase that we use in like donor acquisition and things like that. But I think we can't understate how important it is that people truly do need this human to human connection where they feel
Mm.
like they can actually be vulnerable. And I think that there's a misconception that's like, oh, it's so uncomfortable to talk about money, or it's so uncomfortable to talk about these hard things. When actually, I find that if we create that safe, non judgmental space, people are really hungry for it. They
Mm.
really desire to have a place where they can go and share what's bothering them or what's on their heart and just be open to another person.
Well, I'm curious. Major gift office, as you might expect, executive directors, the different sorts of folk that listen to this show, many of us spend a lot of time trying to understand the mind of the donor, just generally
Mhm.
speaking, which is oftentimes the wealthy donor.
Mhm.
Are there insights that you've learned through this process, that might be really helpful for a major gift office or some other type of fundraiser to really keep in mind when trying to
Yeah.
engage with folks?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that comes to mind, and this is just one that I have picked up on, I get to spend a lot of time with a lot of folks in this industry. And one of the common frustrations that I hear quite a bit is like, man, I know this donor is worth X amount of dollars, and we're only asking for this much. The math makes sense. It's such a small amount compared to their overall net worth. And I've showed them how all the math works, and they still are hesitant to give, or they're still holding back. And that's just really frustrating for me. And I'm not sure why that is. I'm curious if you hear that too from different folks. Um, so, what I like to remind people is that you truly have no idea what this person is up against. And now that I've been a counselor for so many years, I no longer show up to the table and wonder like, oh, I wonder if they have something from their past that's hindering them. No, it's, I wonder what happened in their past that's hindering them. We all have something. And I'm reminded of a client that I've worked with who is a millionaire. And I can share a lot about their story potentially later. But he at a young age had an alcoholic father. And every time he thinks about giving money away, money's become his security blanket, right? And every time he thought about giving money away, he was instantly put back into that mindset of being that young kid who's praying in the back seat of his dad's pickup as he's driving, 100 miles an hour drunk down the highway, right? Like like our money attachments run so deep and they go places that most people have no idea about. Right.
Wow. And you're going there with your clients.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
That's
oh,
deep.
Absolutely. Oh,
That's really deep.
absolutely. Absolutely.
That wraps part 1 of our conversation with Courtney Markley. In the next episode, we'll unpack powerful donor stories and learn how unresolved trauma can prevent generosity, even when the desire to give is strong. Join us for part 2, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if this episode resonated with you. I'm your host, Tom Dauber. Thank you for joining me as we journey together towards major gift mastery on the Abundant Vision Fundraising Podcast.